so the bamboos can now be rooted,
Yeah.
and when they're rooted, you can run octopi clippers on them with the pine, and then you'd be able to do that.
But my understanding is when you go away from their architecture, I lose a lot of the features of monitoring.
No, I have some other pretty decent.
That's been like their sacrifices. They'll say, yeah, you can do this now, but they turn off and disable other features of the software that I utilize.
Oh, hey, I don't think so.
With like the monitoring of it, and that's been. I think I've seen everywhere. It's that
But you know, Okta anywhere offers the same AI,
Yeah, it's
right?
another.
Everywhere.
I don't have it on. I mean, it's just how it ties in.
Yeah.
I mean, how is that now tied into the cameras and everything on there to do that? And are they releasing that code when you? That's been my understanding. They don't release that code to be able to access that part of it.
I'm playing with it, so I'll know more sooner.
That's the thing. Like if I had full functionality, but it'd have to be full functionality. Because the issue too, because you can set up the local network to not go through, not send the file to China.
Right, right.
But then you lose functionality. And so I've tried experimenting with it. I didn't like it because I lost the functionality that I use. It doesn't use all the time, but like I would say 1 out of 12 prints goes through and the calibration is wrong and it doesn't. It starts way too high, so there's no adhesion. And if you just let that run, you don't have the AI to go. I mean, like, ideally, I'm there to watch it, but it takes such a long time to go through this. Sometimes I don't go down right away, then you have a mess, and it's nice when the
I
AI
hear you.
matches but I've also had several instances where I go to send a file, their servers are down, and now you can't print. I was gonna a few weeks ago, I was gonna run all the printers at night, and I couldn't do anything because their servers were down.
Give me a one.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Cool.
Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yep. Yep.
Right.
Set a reservation.
Yeah, that's the problem. I can't use one router.
1, 2, 3.
Just different way to use the
Gigabit
pixels.
Cool.
gateway from Xfinity.
All right, we're pointing at the
I'm
thing.
using Wi-Fi 7. And my phone is the only device I have that has. That's
It's
my
right,
internet.
reuse them.
But
Yeah.
I got
Yeah, and so outputs.
I got 1.7 gigabyte download on my phone.
So we're ready?
I think so.
So
Plug my laptop into your.
Absolutely.
and turn that into.
Probably in the front.
Just
There's
unplug
more.
Just unplug that other one. Unplug one back here.
Exactly.
Yes, it does.
All the work you just did.
Yep.
That's
Nothing
what
more
we're talking
than-
about.
The problem solved. You can go there.
Absolutely, but it'd be wasteful to turn that gigabyte for Wi-Fi 7 into just a gateway and not a router, and not.
I think this works. Yeah.
Donut and microphone. Which one?
Donut and microphone, exactly. Welcome everybody. While Dale is getting plugged in as well.
Oh, once my glasses.
We're
Or 3 foot.
in our
Okay, thank you.
continuing efforts to record. We collaborate with Tim today, so I will make sure I have a small camera for next time as well. So we'll do the best here. We've got a good static environment. There's been comments like trying if there's other chatter or something, it's been picking up or whatever. But we also, if you have questions, I have an extra little mic, so you know, if anybody's close to Dale, it should pick up. But I just want to like leave this one back here in case you might have a question. And so, you know, it's like, hey, some of us don't talk as loud as the rest of us, except Albert. But so I'm, you know, not to record any conversations, but I'm just going to leave the microphone back here.
You should renew that, you should know that by now.
It is not off. So,
It is not.
It-
It is not.
oh,
So using your laptop as a camera?
correct. Just the
Wow.
front-facing camera. So,
That's interesting.
yeah, we are doing networking today.
Yes, we are.
Mm-hmm.
I hope.
Is it live on the air now?
I'm going to check right now.
All right, we ready, Ben? All right, welcome everyone. Glad to see such a great turnout. Appreciate everybody coming out. We are going to cover networking today. We're actually going to cover some very new stuff that I most recently uncovered, and I think it will help a lot of people that have unique network situations where they're using a more controlled home network, but yet they want to have a show network in that. But we'll be diving into that. But first, I wanted to cover some basic networking stuff. I'm winging most of this because that's what I do best. So please don't hesitate to ask questions, or if I miss something or you don't understand something, please don't hesitate to stop me. You know, when you get your typical home network, you usually get it from a provider, whether it's Comcast, Xfinity, or somebody else. And now the cell phone companies are getting into that. And the first thing they do is usually provide you some sort of modem. And so what the modem does is translate the internet signal from that provider, whether you're using DSL, cable, or fiber technology, into wired technology that you can run on your home network. And this happens to be a cable modem here, and that from used with Xfinity in the past, and so we've kind of gone away from I've gone away from modems, or using this type of modem. I'm now running a fiber connection, which is way better and way faster and everything else. Then the first thing we have is, after that, is a router. And so this is your basic router that you could buy at Walmart or anywhere else. It has the Wi-Fi built into it. It'll cover a small to medium house. You will let the wife surf the internet and watch TV and do all that stuff. But it's really kind of locked down, and it doesn't give you a whole bunch of functionality when it comes to segmenting networks and VLANs and that. And you know, maybe we should back up just a touch and talk about why we're really networking is important to us. So how many of you have been running your show and then the wife complains that the TV doesn't work, or the kids can't surf the internet? Exactly, right? Because chances are you went home, hooked up your Pi, put it on your home network, hooked up your controller, put it on your home network, and everything works great until you get to showtime. And then when you start running your show, the amount of traffic that goes between your Pi and your controllers is huge. It's unbelievable. You just imagine that how many thousands of lights you have. Each light blinks at how many times a second, and each one of that's a data packet, right? There's some sort of data packet going out there and triggering that light. So the multicast noise on the network just floods the network in that. So best practices is start segmenting things. And so there are two ways to segment it. You can segment your whole home network into multiple VLANs so that you're getting the traffic off. And the way a VLAN works is it creates an individual network, but the two networks can only talk to each other if you have a router in place, because it's what we call layer 3 traffic. VLANs run at the layer 2, right? The switch. You know, whatever you plug in here, you get out here, right? So that's at the layer 2 level. And so in order to segment, we have to get to the layer 3 level. Now, your typical Walmart router doesn't do it very well, if at all. Most of them are locked down and you can't get into them. So then some of us in the past, we get with Ben, we get with me, we get with other people, and then we start doing things ourselves, right? We go out, we get our own modem. We go out and we get our own router. You know, this one right here, this is the UDM Pro. It's a relatively expensive router, but it does all those things we've talked about very well. You might go out and get a piece of hardware and load pfSense on it or something like that. Again, it does all that very well. And we've covered that over and over in past, how to create VLANs on that. So today we're going to try a little something different that doesn't necessarily require such a elaborate piece of equipment or so much network knowledge to get something like this running in that. But as we continue to go through that, The other thing that's key to all this is access points, right? So you have to have access points. This happens to be Unify access points, probably some of the best out there. They have multiple models. They have ones that can use multiple network addresses, which then works with the VLANs. They have one that can create multiple connections, which then gives you more bandwidth, and that. So you know, using the Unify APs is pretty good. But again, most of us are still doing this, right? Running our Nighthawks, running our other cable modems and things like that. So, how many of you guys have separate APs from your routers? Albert, most of you. Okay. In that. So, all right. So, questions on network. I know I kind of went through that very fast, and again, need to make sure we're interactive, or else I'll just blow through all this and we won't just talk about anything.
I guess a good question would be like, who is still just running off of their Comcast or CenturyLink
Yeah.
router and AP?
Well, I didn't used to be until I finally upgraded to the Wi-Fi 7 from Comcast because it was gigabit down.
Okay.
But I can't create a separate network. But
Yeah.
it doesn't allow you to guest network period. So
Yeah.
right now I'm doing that.
Yeah, I'm using the one that I got from them, but then I have my own router that's.
So you're actually double routing. So
Yes.
you have their router, and then you put your own router behind them to create
And
a
then another router to that router.
and then you put and it works in most scenarios, but fortunately you're not using that for other things than show, because then you would get in a lot of trouble with just general internet traffic trying to double route.
Yeah.
And things get confused. But you're just really using that to isolate. So that's one way to do it. And that once you start creating that, you typically have to move to managed switches so that you can have one switch. You go in, this is configurable, and you assign one port to one VLAN, another port to another VLAN, and so it allows you to segment things off of the switch. If you have simplistic APs, you could put one AP on one VLAN and one AP on another VLAN. The problem is they're using the same airwaves, and so then you could have some fighting there. So it's not ideal, but you could do that. And that so this switch is capable. It's a managed switch, is actually capable of running VLANs. But when I first started out at home, I didn't have a bunch of managed switches. So what I would do is turn the ports on the back of my router. One of them was a VLAN 1 and one of them was a VLAN 2, and then I would put dump switches from that point on. So I was creating physically two wired networks, right? But it worked, right? It kept them separated and everything else. But as time went on, the technology got better. I got more into it. I got more stuff. Then I started switching to the more managed stuff, and then and then this is a little unified desktop switch, which is capable of doing VLANs and everything else, but it requires a controller. So you either have to load the control software, just like for this, on a PC, or you have to get a unified router that has the controller built into it, so it can control it. So, go ahead, Albert.
That's a switch, not a hub?
What, this? This is a switch,
Wow, they're small now.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
20
Everything's our switches these days.
No hub.
So you pay $400 for this, and then you can only pay $25 for this, and you get, right, because this controls this. So this is limited use on its own, right? But if you have the controller software and everything else behind it, it becomes a great tool. The nice thing about it is PoE, so you plug it in, you don't even have to power it. So if you plug it in, does everybody know what PoE is? Power over Ethernet.
How do you know if it's a 48 volt PoE or 24 volt PoE?
It doesn't matter, because it's auto sensing, right? So it auto senses what the voltage is, and typically the PoE converter converts to the proper voltage coming out of it, irregardless whether it's 48 or 24. That's what PoE AF plus.
Well, isn't enough power to do a hat or anything else you have running off by itself?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, I was gonna get into this a little bit more, but here's a PoE to 12 volts, right? So PoE goes in, network goes out to your controller, 12 volts turns your controller on. We're actually gonna use it here in a second on this controller. We'll hook it up via PoE and run it PoE. Okay. What other stuff? Huh? Anything?
Even if you're running, say, like with one line, I mean, with the F4, I'm running with two smart receivers, so they might go 35, 45 feet. Would you say PoE would still?
Well, so a smart receiver, you can't run PoE, right? Because they have to have their own power supply, right? Now, I would not use PoE and try to run all these ports off of this. This would not produce enough power or current, but it works.
For the F48, you could do it because
On the F48.
it only needs.
Yes,
two.
an F48 would be a perfect example, right?
Correct.
Because it's running to all the smart receivers. Also a Pi, right? So right here, let's do this. There you go. USB-C 3 or USB-C running on a PoE. So you could plug a Pi 4, and they have them for Pi 3s too. And so you could run the Pi off of it as well, PoE. I'm using it today because I forgot my charger for my laptop. So I'm charging my laptop with my PoE. All right. Other questions about basic networking?
You ever have problems with brownouts when doing it that way?
No, I mean, I haven't had any problems. I don't do a lot of it because it really takes a special circumstance. You know, most of my stuff is on F-16s that have their own power supplies. You know, takes a special circumstance. I use these a ton with cameras, right? Because you know, you get a camera that's not PoE capable. You plug it in here, and then you've got power and Ethernet at the camera, and you don't have to run separate power to it. It works absolutely fabulous for those. So a lot of my cameras are that way. Right. Anything else on basic networking? Questions you always had and you wanted to know? Haven't told you anything yet. All right, so I really want to jump into the meat of what I wanted to talk about today. And again, where this really came up and made me do a lot of thinking and actually made me try it was, there we go, was, you know, Rich and I commute back and forth every month, right? And Rich is telling me his scenario. His mother lives in Arizona, and he does a show for her. And the problem is, every time she has a problem, he has to go down there. He has to call her up to go, because the show's on its own standalone network, right? And it's not connected to her home network. And so he's got to get her to unconnect the controller from the show network and connect it to the home network so that he could get to it over the internet, right? And he's like, well, there's got to be a better way. And we all know that Pis have been capable of tethering for a long time, right? But everybody who's ever tried it has locked themselves out of a Pi. There's a big warning that says, if you do this, you may not be able to get back in the Pi. And it happens. It just happens. So I've never considered tethering a great option either. But what I have discovered recently is that the Pi is capable of doing much more if it's configured right. And so what we have here today is a basic Pi. I flashed it last night. It's the only thing I've done is went through the basic setup and got it connected to the Wi-Fi. And so today we have our home network, which is my cell phone. So I have a hotspot up here running my cell phone. If you pull up your Wi-Fi, you can see it, CLE home. So that's representing our home network. That's where our wife lives. That's where our kids live. That's our home network, right? And that my laptop is connected to that. so we can get to the internet through that. So my phone is acting like my router for today at home. And so what I did was flash this Pi with version 7, and I went through the basic configuration and I got it connected to the Wi-Fi. So if we look up here in the corner, 192.168.247.13, that's my cell phone's network. And so this Pi now, we're able to access it from our home. All right, everybody's got to envision this with us. So we're on home. So now what we want to do is go through some basic setups to expand the network capabilities. So if you go into the status control page and you go down to FPP settings, and you go to system, come on. Oops, I didn't go that right. Where's the advanced settings? My mind went totally blank.
Does it work?
No.
Other,
Oh, you need to turn, do you want to turn on the additional UI?
Yeah.
So go to the UI tab
Yeah.
in the middle. Nope, you're in this, right,
Ah,
there you go, UI.
there it is. Thank you.
And user interface
Again,
level.
my mind went blank. I've done this only 1,000
That's
times in the
why,
last
yeah.
week.
they
User
moved it
interface
around.
level.
Huh? Okay, I'm sorry. Any questions? All right, so we went into FPP settings and we went to the UI. And then, so you go into the interface level and you switch it to advanced. You probably should do that anyway, so you get all the bells and whistles, but, you know, they have that to keep us dummies out of there. So now we're gonna then turn on all the advanced settings, which is going to help us in the network. So now if we go back to status control network, and so we go in here, if we do WLAN, wireless LAN, WLAN 0, you can see we're connected DHCP and we're connected to my home network, right? But now we've added additional information down below. And where that's gonna help us is we're gonna jump back over to our Ethernet, right? So now this is the Ethernet port that currently is not turned on, and we're going to set up a show network. So we're gonna click to make it static. We're gonna pick a network range. So I'm gonna do like 10.25.25.1, right? So that's gonna be my Pi's IP address on my brand new network, right? The subnet mask will automatically populate for you. And the gateway, well, now the Pi's the gateway, so it has the same IP address. Everybody see that? I see a lot of, like, I don't believe you eyes out there, but
Why do you have a Class A IP but a Class C net mask?
because I'm playing around.
Oh,
Because you can.
I can do
You
it.
can,
Because
but
you
that don't
can.
mean you should.
But in this case, you can.
I did it, Albert, because I really want to distinguish between my home network and my Pi network, my show network, right? So when you set up VLANs, you don't want to get crossed up. So you usually set them up so that they're distinctive, right? You give them something distinctive. Me personally, on all my VLANs at home, they are set up, you know, my main VLAN is 1 and 0, my cameras are on 5, my Christmas show is on 25 to the 25th, right? 25, Christmas 25, and that, and so that's my mentality. So you just have to figure out what works for you. Fortunately, when we're doing it at this level, you can do whatever you want. So as long as you put in a private address, which is the 10 dot range, or the 172.168.16 through 32 range, right? 172.
192, 172, and 10.
Yeah. Or what we're more typical is seeing the 192 range, right?
Yep.
192.168.
But yeah, keeping, because a lot of the home routers are 192, using a 10 dot makes it
It's very different.
very distinctly different, so you know what you're playing on.
Exactly.
Unless your home network is 10 dot, oh, like mine.
Well, and that just depends on who set you up, right?
Yep. Yep, so then your show could be
So-
192.
So, you know, speaking of that, when I set up my home network, I made it 192.168.0.1, right? And then I started having DHCP issues because I was running out of addresses. So I could create a second VLAN and push things off, but what I did is I just changed the subnet mask
Right.
from a 24 to a 30 to a 23, which gave me so it gave me another 255 addresses. So my home network is 192.168.0.0 through 192.168.1.255.
And another, for those that may work from home and need a VPN into like their company environment, sometimes that internal network is on a 10 or 192 something different VLAN as well. So it's usually good practice, even when you get a consumer grade router, to put it at like 192.168.175 or just something
odd.
obscure that won't conflict with a VPN that you're dialing into. So if we have spouses or whatever that have to VPN, things won't work very well. So
Yeah, and when I first got into home automation, things would come statically configured, and inevitably it would be 192.168.0 something, and it'd be like, I can't connect to this because
Something's already got that
Yeah,
idea.
it's conflicting with my network, so I'd have to figure out a way to get into it to get it changed. So anyway, there you go, Albert. That's what we went with. That's what I went with today.
That's good.
All right, and so now what we want to do is go ahead and update that interface. We're going to restart the network. Yes.
it's kind of like a Windows machine. Sometimes needs a reboot.
They like to reboot, right? Pies do. All right, I think it's there. All right, and so now we've added that, and so down below we want to enable the DHCP server, right? And then we can set the range. So this DHCP server is going to dish out addresses starting at 100. So 10, 25, 25, 100 will be the first IP address, and it will issue out up to 50 of them. If we need to change it, we can, but 50 should be more enough for a show network, unless you're doing something really crazy. And so now, once again, we need to update the network. I'm going to restart it just to be safe.
Yeah.
All right, notice up here at the top, we're still connected to wireless. I still have access. We're still on our home network. Everything is still great, right? Now watch what happens. We're going to go over here. Yes.
Now you have a second server issuing DHCP? Because your router's still issuing it?
They're not on the same network. I just created a 10.10, so this one's issuing DHCP
network, yeah.
on this network. The other one is issuing DHCP on that network. They're not talking. They're on a separate network right now.
They do not know about one another.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense now. Thank you.
Okay? So we come over here. Like I said, we're going to use the PoE.
I do have one more question on that. So now that you've configured the E0 on that,
Yep.
Yes.
can you no longer plug it physically with a landline back to that router?
To your home router?
You cannot, because
cannot.
it will not join that network because it has a
It's
fixed
different
address,
IP. Okay.
right?
I just
won't-
want to make sure.
So asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Can you connect it? Yes,
Yes.
you can. Will you be able to default connect to it using your home DHCP?
No.
No. If you are hardlined into the same network, you could configure your Ethernet port on your laptop to
Yes.
be within that same network range,
And
but
connect.
as static. But you never want to plug two DHCP issuing servers into the same network.
Right.
Okay?
That's what I was-
Because you may reboot something and now your Xbox will get a 10.25 potentially IP
Yeah.
from the Pi, correct?
Yeah, we really need to keep the phone separate from this, and the
Correct.
Pi is the gateway.
Yep.
Pi is the router.
But they don't know of one another yet.
Not yet,
Right.
but they're going to.
I was gonna say, since, what would keep you, like in my scenario where I can't create a second SID, what would stop me from using another router I have, don't give it access to the internet, period, and let it not even know about my home line?
You could absolutely
That's
do
not
that.
Then the only one that really needs to do would be to check the time
You can do that, but the problem is you have to physically connect to that network to configure that network.
Or Wi-Fi,
And you have to
right?
physically connect to your home network to do your home network.
Right.
So you've
Right.
created a physical connection you have to make. But you could absolutely do that. You could have two totally segmented networks.
Right.
Just like we're sitting in here right now, and there's a network over there, right, that belongs to the fire department. You know, and I have a network here that belongs to me, and Rich is running a router over there and it belongs to him.
Yeah, so in the example, you could plug that completely separate network
Yeah.
Right.
WAN port out of that router into an Ethernet port LAN on your home.
Yes, and it'd be router and a router.
Why does it need to talk, it won't need to talk to my home network at all, it would be a separate router.
Well,
It is, but you need to talk to it to configure it.
Right. And it needs to get time, as you said, like the pies, if you set it, it's gonna eventually drift, and so your show may start at 5 o'clock one day,
Right.
5:02 the next day, or 4:50, like, it's gonna drift.
Right.
It needs an
If
int,
I'm not physically connecting it, this
Right.
separate router I have.
right,
To that.
Right.
Then there's no crosstalk, no.
Correct.
No conflicts of,
right.
I'm just curious if that would be easier.
But the only thing is for time, and however, if you boot up your Pi and you use like a background sequence or an automated sequencer, the moment it has power and it's ready to go, it will start doing your
playing.
show.
Right.
So you could get around that by not using time, by using a timer that
Right.
boots up the Pi and then
I
shuts it
just
down.
connect the separate router
Yep.
to my master Pi and then run it the way I did last year.
You could.
I wouldn't even have to.
But just don't get ahead. Let's finish what we're doing here.
Yeah,
This is, let's finish, okay? All right, so we got our switch here, and so I have the cable for our switch. We're going to plug it into the Ethernet on the Pi. If I turn it over, which is going to give us lights. You guys can't see them, but the lights are coming on, and then in turn we are
Yeah, go to your laptop.
now it's missing power.
I think you unplug the power. Right up the controller.
Well, I can see the light.
Oh, I did. You're exactly right. I was like, how could that go away? There we go. We have lights. Good catch. All right. So the Pi is connected to the switch. The switch is connected through to the controller, and it's connected powering it over PoE, right? And so now if we go back into our Pi and we look at it,
does the OLED, did the OLED update?
I'm sure it did. I just didn't
Yeah.
know.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So we're going to refresh.
Refresh this screen, yeah.
And look what happened. Down here at the bottom, 10, 25, 25, 101. So 101 now is this controller. So this controller is at 101. So this is a reason to never set controllers at a fixed address. Leave them DHCP so you can plug them in anywhere. But you're saying, hey, but we need to reserve that address. Well, now we go over here and enable this, and now we've reserved it in the Pi.
Laptop or controller?
Huh?
Is your laptop getting DHCP over Ethernet, or
Yeah.
is it just powering?
Just powering it.
Oh, okay, because I'm like, you got one going there too, so.
Yeah,
So
I'm
that
just
is-
powering. My laptop is connected Wi-Fi to
Only
my
Wi-Fi.
phone.
Okay,
Right. Yeah, so this is not plugged in.
gotcha. I didn't see that.
All right. So now we pulled the address, right? So then you're going to go, okay, great, but what have you done for me, right? We can go load sequences on here and everything else. What if we need to control that controller, right? So then we just go up to the address, because now we've enabled, oh, I got to do one more thing, sorry. We want to turn on IP forwarding, because we want it to be able to forward traffic between the two networks. Now we're going to really make the Pi the router, right? So once again, we're going to update and restart our network.
And this is all being recorded, yes?
Okay? All right. So we still have our address down here. We're forwarding traffic. So now I want to, we'll duplicate this because I'm cheap. And so now I want to talk to that controller from my home network, because I'm still on my home network, right? So now you can go up here, put in proxy, /110.25.25.101, because that was the IP address of our controller, and we hit enter. Look what we got. Now we're controlling our controller from our home network. And our show network is segmented. So the Pi is talking to the controllers, that's where all the traffic is at. The only time you're talking to the controllers is when you want to control them, and that's so you're segmented. So you can go into X-Lights. You ever notice the proxy and then a second IP address? That's what you do. You put proxy, you put the Pi's address in the one slot, you put the controller's address in the other slot, and now X-Lights can talk to the controllers. So you can push configuration right to the controller level.
High level question or two here. This is basically the benefit of this is just to segment it off. Like I was saying, so if your wife's saying, why isn't my TV working anymore during show season, that's the main benefit of this?
Yes, segmenting the traffic, right?
Okay.
We need to separate the traffic, right? Who in their first year ran their show on their home network? We all did, right? We all did, because we thought, it's not me, we're gonna get away with it. We're gonna get away with it. And then every one of us has had the wife go, but I was watching Law and Order. I was watching a movie, right?
They're slow now.
Or you may run out of IP addresses like you have.
Yes.
Like if you have a.
Well, that's what I'm getting closer. I'm running out of
Exactly.
the addresses.
So,
It's a benefit to create a separate network.
Is there any benefit
I
if
just got rid of the
you're
life.
loading the sequences on each of the controllers where it's just the timing pins going back and forth? I haven't had network issues, all hardwired.
yeah, you're right. I mean, because you're just sending sync packets, right? And so, but then you have the trouble of going out and loading it on each controller. The version 3, you had to pull the SD cards, right? And load them and then put the SD cards back. I don't think it was until version 4 of the Falcons that you could push it over the Wi-Fi.
That leads kind of the second question. I'm a Colt guy and using the old Beagle ones.
Okay.
Black. Still recommended there, or do you, so I'm running everything. I have a show with my main controller.
So Beagle, I'm not a BeagleBone guy,
Yep.
but FPP runs on BeagleBone.
Yep.
This is FPP. I'm telling you, everything that I'm doing here, probably 90% works on that,
Okay.
right? But now we have a Pi, we need a second Pi, or we need something else on our show network, right?
That was my big question. Is it
So-
worth
so
getting
now-
a main Pi to control the whole show off of? And that's all it does.
Yep.
is a control.
So now we take another switch cable, right? And we plug it into this Pi, and we power this Pi up. I never know which way they go. So lights came on, Pi's coming up. We're gonna give it just a second to breathe because that's a brand new version 8. Just loaded it on there, haven't even fired up once. We're gonna go back into our original Pi. We're gonna scroll all the way down. We're gonna refresh the screen a couple times while we're waiting.
I did have one question on that. I saw that it pulled up an IP address, it automatically assigned it at that spot there. Can I assign a specific IP address that I wanna reserve for that controller?
I don't think you can because it won't show up until it's been a DHCP assigned. In other words, there's no way to
So I
add.
can't make that one
Yeah, can
twenty-five
you type
from
one?
101,
Yeah, can you type 140?
So
right there?
I suspect you could change it.
Yeah.
okay?
And then the next time it reboots, it'll add that address out. We'll try that in just a second.
Right, but I think it has to be outside of the pool offset
Yeah,
because
it's
now-
best
Right,
practice,
I
right?
understand the pull-offs.
Yeah, it's best practice to go outside the pool, yes.
Also, one thing, just anyone doing this, because this bit me last year, was there was a bug in FTP that would not allow this to happen.
Yeah.
The second you plugged in, that to FTP, and they fixed it with 7.5. I
So-
don't know if it was around 7.3 to
And-
7.4, or somewhere around there they fixed it, but if you're on an older version, just be on the new version.
I'm going to tell you that I played with this so many times, and it was so much easier to connect the Pi to my home network, get it going, then go in and set the Wi-Fi credentials, and then reboot it. Than it was to go in through FPP, the AP, because the AP is trying to use this, and you're trying to connect Wi over here, and I had a really hard time doing that. So the best, easiest way is when you got a Pi, plug it into your home network, then configure your Wi-Fi network for your home, get it to working so that you get a Wi-Fi address up here, and then start doing all this. Because when it's an AP mode and you're trying to connect Wi-Fi, it wasn't happy. That was just, but I know it works because I was able to get it to work, but it was just easier to go the other way. All right, so we picked up another IP address right here. We know it's the Pi because that's what we added, right? So if we come up here and we duplicate that tab, can't type, can't run a mouse. You guys probably wonder how I get anything done at home. So our address is 147. So if we go over here and we change that 101 to 147, and we hit enter, look at that, initial setup for Pi, version 8, right?
Over
Version
the
8.
Ethernet.
Over Ethernet.
Yep.
So now the Pi is on the show network as well. So now we could go through and finish the setup.
Now one you definitely don't wanna set it up with the DHCP.
No, this one you treat like a normal Pi, right? At my house, I have a main Pi that runs my show. It has the schedule, it has all the sequences, but it's not in a convenient location for my FM transmitter. So I have a second Pi that's connected to my FM transmitter, right? And it runs in remote mode, and all it needs is the music. And so the music's all loaded on that, and then this Pi says play, 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 right? And it does.
So in your case of the
Bill,
Beagle,
can
this
you
is
back
where you
up
could plug
the
in
other
your
Pi?
Beagle. What's that?
The enable button, the first one you enabled, second one you didn't, what's the difference?
That's the DHCP reservation. So I have not
So you're
reserved.
reserving that address?
I haven't reserved it
Okay.
yet. Good practice is I would click that.
Yeah.
And that.
Okay.
I just haven't done it. All right. So we got a brand new Pi ready to go. We can configure it while it's sitting out there in the show network. Any questions? So let's go back now and let's change this to 50 because we know our range started at 100, right? So we're going to update the interface. We're going to restart it because that's good practice. And in the meantime, we're going to come over here and we're going to power off this controller. And then we're going to power it back on. And hopefully it pulled a 50 address.
Building anticipation, Dale.
Might
If you're building that, it's getting exciting now.
getting exciting, huh? So we can refresh the screen just to see. It stayed 50. That's a good sign. Get rid of that. We don't need to save that password. So now in theory, we have to come over here and change this 101 to 50, right? Because we know that's the new address. Come on. Come on. Well, it's there. That's actually,
Yeah, refresh.
no, that's the Pi talking. Pi doesn't know how to get to 50. Try it one more time.
Try 101 again and see if it's still there.
You may have to reboot it.
Yeah, I didn't change it. I did, I pulled the power.
You did pull the power, but I would in this case probably pull the power of the controller and reboot the Pi because the DHCP tables are probably
Yeah.
not reloaded.
All right.
Do that and then reboot.
So we got the controller off, and now we'll restart the Pi. I probably needed to just, oh, you know what else? Oh, no, that's, because I changed the address.
Yeah,
Yeah, see, it pulled it back in.
Yeah.
And so,
What if you change, so it has that entries there, what if you change? that to
yeah,
have
so,
the MAC
so
address to
let's,
it?
I don't know why I did that. So let's change, let's get rid of this one.
Uncheck that one, check the bottom one, and check that to be 50.
And change this to 50.
Yeah, it didn't get an actual MAC address. Yeah, and then update. Yeah.
Okay, restart the network. All right, now let's plug it back in and see if it pulls a 50 this time. If I was, could see better, I could actually tell you down here, but I'm old.
Are you guys all comfortable in Chrome saving passwords? Because I'm that guy and I use Chrome just for that, but I'm inherently distrusting of Chrome. I was just curious if you guys save your passwords on.
This is a computer show network for Christmas lights, so I mean it's pretty benign.
Someone taps into it, hey, they got lights.
That was more of a general question on
Yeah.
comfort level with.
I use a secure password locker.
Alright, that's it. And how far away is 8?
8's out now.
What, is it official,
It's not official yet.
but it will be, what you said last time?
So the rule of thumb is all the developers make it run and work and stuff. And
So, keep setting it back?
Yeah, it doesn't like it. So for whatever reason, it just keeps adding it back to the pool, even with the same MAC address. So maybe a bug. So the answer right now is no.
What if you gave it?
It
what if you
wants to
assigned
stay
you
in the
kept it
pool, it looks
inside
like.
the pool?
Huh?
What if you kept it inside the pool?
so like
Come on, Dale, this is
150.
exciting stuff.
Just make it 102.
150, no,
Make it
better do
102.
like 30. So we're not on the
Yeah,
edges.
uncheck the bottom one, yeah.
Uncheck it.
Okay, then you have to update it.
Update, restart the network,
And restart controller.
and then,
Because you know, I spent about 4 hours trying to figure it out. And I'd still not get it.
so why don't you just set all your controllers to DHCP, so whatever address they get, they can have.
Because I want.
That's not satisfying.
Because I wrote it down.
Create a MAC address specific to state addresses, and I wanna make sure. Times like this.
Dale, you're dealing with a group full of OCD intense people.
I know.
It's Christmas lights where we're not gonna allow DHCP.
They don't care. Oh,
Figure out how to do it
Oh.
now, or
Uh-oh.
we can add those.
Oh.
Because I didn't have the same.
No.
nope,
No, I found it. It did. Did it?
nope, nope.
Refresh that, and we'll see.
It's gonna come back 101. It does take it a second to load, but there it is, it's back.
Yeah,
No, no,
it's not letting.
no.
So that would be
That sounds
something
weird.
that I would talk or file a ticket or something like you
So
need
fix
to
that in
either, because DHCP rec is you can assign outside the pool, and
Yes,
that
you
is
can.
what it is.
Yeah.
So statics remain outside of the pool, and DHCP is literally the wild, wild west.
You found the bug.
Never seen
You
this.
can reserve in, but
Okay.
it's really tricky and
All right,
dangerous.
before I blow your
You
brains
should-
further, anything else on
Bad
this?
practice.
Yeah.
I mean, so I do it, it's just a different way to do the same thing.
Yeah,
But just curious your thought on that, because rather than do the proxy, I still do I don't do the DHCP server on here, but I still do the route, the IP forwarding.
right.
And then on the actual router, I'm creating the static route that allows
Yes.
me to
Yes,
get that, make that connection.
and
So there's just,
I didn't want to, I wanted to play with that, and I'm going to. But his question being is, instead of creating the route in here, you could go on your home router, if it's sophisticated enough, and say the 10.25.25 network can be found via 192.168.247.13, and therefore you no longer have to use the proxy. You can just put the right IP address and would connect to it.
Correct.
So
That's
you
what
could
I
go
did.
into your home router and configure that if you have the router savvy. Chances are, if you have the router savvy, you're doing something else anyway. But so you could use your home router to route.
But you have to have forwarding turned on.
Yes.
Well, you can also use the proxy table on the Pi, on FPP as
Yeah, I was
well.
gonna ask about
Under
that
network.
next, under the
Add
status
the address
control.
in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that might be the way to do your set up a permanent proxy.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you're done with that part. The next one was under status control and going to proxy
Did you
settings.
write down questions back? Is it grill the host? What? All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Under status control of
Yes.
FTP, then scrolling down, there was the proxy settings. Is this same information over there as well? So go all the way to the top.
That's what we
Under
just
status
talked about. We just talked about that table.
So that's the table there.
See, and that's
So-
where it keeps pulling from.
So it's in there. That one's in there.
Oh,
So-
but
so-
it's using this maybe, so.
We could add it and
Cause you can assign the MAC here too.
but where do you put the MAC?
First put it in, I think you can, it gives you the box that you add.
No, it's only the IP host name here that you can give it a name. Huh. It's like
So you
describing-
could static. This is probably a way to do that. If I put in the 130 in
This is
here
the
and
table I
then
use.
and saved it, then
So in here, you're putting the 130 under the IP host name or under the
no under the IP or host name. So you either got to put the name of the device or the IP address, and then you would statically set your controller, and then it would find it.
Yeah, you can put all the
Okay.
controllers in this list.
So instead of it
And
doing
then
it,
find it
And
through the
then-
proxy.
So when I'm in this site here, I want to use that DHCP setting for the FPP, correct? So I'm using the 10.25.25.
yes, it
Not
has to be the same
192.
network.
Correct.
Okay, so not the 192.168. that-
No, it has to be the same network as the show network is.
Okay,
And then if you statically set something that's outside your pool, you could come in here and add it as a proxy, and then you'd still be able to get to it.
So,
okay.
and
And then
then,
it wouldn't use the DHCP at all.
so then how are you actually getting into your mother's network?
So right now, I was using TeamViewer to get onto her laptop,
Okay,
and then her laptop is wireless, talking to her home network.
yep,
And then the Pi that's at her site is also wirelessly connected to her home network.
right.
The problem is, I did not configure the Pi correctly in that the Pi ETH0 is the same as the
Gotcha.
wireless.
But-
And that's where I need to correct it.
So what you could also do, what service provider internet does she have?
Whatever the local cable one is there, I think it's Comcast.
So you could potentially put, if you were to hook up the Pi wirelessly to her home network and give it a reserved IP address on the home network, you may be able to put that IP address in the DMZ or the demilitarized zone and able to go to her public IP address port, like, and pick a random port like 9244 or something. And that port goes to the Wi-Fi address of the Pi,
Yeah.
and then you don't even need TeamViewer. You can go right on your computer here, and instead of 192.168.247.13, put in her Comcast address,
Plus the
:9244, and you go right into the Pi. Then you could do the /proxy, and then the controller, and you're going from your house over the internet to her house, to her Pi, to her controller.
Yeah.
She probably still
That's
has it.
port
I
forwarding.
would need the outside.
Forwarding, you
Port
can't do
forwarding
on
is what he
Chromecast,
just
right?
did.
You can.
But
You
yeah, the
can't
issue
do
that
it
I
on
was
your
having
own.
with hers was that
You can.
currently,
Yeah.
I had the wireless
Yeah, but will
ETH0
Comcast
set up
tell
as
you
the same
the
IP.
password
And
of their
so
box?
she had
Yep.
to unplug the controller
I
for
didn't
me
know
to
they would
access
tell you the
wirelessly
password.
into the FTP.
Or you get your own modem and you can control it yourself.
So, all right, so the next step is, that's all fine and dandy. We can wire up a show network and we're good to go. But I have wireless on my show network. And so how can I use wireless with this, right? So if I go over here, turn this on, I have a mini access point, right? And it's already configured to, it's gonna pull an IP address off my Pi. And now anything I connect to this is on my show network. So if anybody wants to, this is it, CLE show, and then we'll pull you up here. Does that make sense?
That's kind of funny, you have blank, so do you leave the password blank, or
Yes,
is the
it is.
password blank?
No, I didn't know what to do. It's like I debated that actually for a few seconds.
Because you have a
I know.
home pass, okay, that's not blank, but do you,
I know.
At home line says password and you have to type in.
So that in key, that is plugged into
into
the Pi, correct?
Yes, it's plugged into the
The
switch,
switch.
which is
So now
plugged
you're,
in.
you're looking at.
Yeah, so if we go back in here,
25 is what's being
Right.
on that.
so if we go back in here
if I wanted to
to
join that network.
network,
Yep, you have a CLE show with no password.
somebody's gonna hack into your show network.
And you have a capital C,
How did I get your?
I have a capital what?
capital
You hear
C
about
on
that
CLE
happening
show.
all the time.
So chances are this is it right here. That's the actual AP's address.
Right,
This one we did away with.
CLE home.
they should have like a loading icon or something right there.
Yeah, if you like that, I just break it.
You know,
There we go. And now somebody connected. So, right?
Man.
not me.
There we go.
John did.
John did in the back. So anyway, so now you could connect something Wi-Fi back in if you do that. And those things are dirt cheap.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And easy to configure. You plug them in, gives you an option. You can turn it into a router, you can turn it into an AP, or you can turn it, and so you just make it an AP and it pulls an address off your DHCP and away you go.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Do I have internet over my Wi-Fi AP?
You should. Is your internet working? Why wouldn't you?
John, you got Wi-Fi? You got internet?
We set the DNS.
No internet.
Did you?
It said no internet?
That's what it says.
Okay. Well, I'd have to look at it, but it should. Why wouldn't it?
Well, wouldn't
Why?
it just be going to the Pi and stopping there? 'Cause it's
Correct.
not-
So if you scroll back, down, or scroll up, sorry, up, down, gateway.
Yeah.
Anything on the right there, the 1025,
Oh, so you want me to
25
change that to
So-
the,
that gateway needs to be the
Oh.
IP address of your phone.
okay.
Which side of the phone, public side or private side?
The Wi-Fi address of the phone. So that's the
Okay,
inside
right.
address.
The inside, private side.
So right now, I don't know what your IP address of your phone is.
I don't know.
Servers as well? Did that get us through?
It won't get you through.
Yeah, DNS is there, so, but you're right, it doesn't have a way to get to it.
Right. Now,
For a show network, would you want them on the internet or just?
Well, like
You're
you
not
have
on
a
the
little
internet,
Falcon
but
you
it's
want
the gate-
too, right?
it's- so in your case, you have FTP that needs clock, potentially. Or if they're just dumb and getting the play signal, so 6 of one, half of the other, yeah.
But the way it is currently, the FPP is still able to get up.
Dot
to get the
49
clock,
is,
FPP, yes, cause it's.
right? Because it's wirelessly grabbing
That's
the
you.
time. Where everybody
The Pi's
below
not.
the Pi, everyone below the Pi
Well,
can't
can't
get
get
past
So
that.
here's where it needs to be,
247.11.
right there.
yeah,
247.11.
yeah.
So if we make this 192.68.247.11.
So now you're saying the gateway is the phone.
Correct.
And your phone's acting as your router, right?
Correct.
Or is it
Yeah.
Pi
That's
acting as your
basically
router?
your
No,
router.
his phone is acting as that home network router. And now, Dale, to truly test it, go over to the other FPP tab. No, nope, that one. Now, yeah, because this is that other Pi, right?
Yeah,
Refresh this, or
Try to grab it one more time.
not
gotta-
only that, but then go up. Let's
Ping
test this.
Yahoo.
Go scroll down. Go to the control, like to try and install a plugin. Let's see if
I
it
don't,
has-
so I think it's gonna make me finish this before it'll.
Yeah, you gotta finish
Oh,
up before
yeah,
you
so
pick
finish-
it up.
Because then, if it can get to the plugins, it's routing now.
That's
to the
the
internet.
question I had for you.
So now he's connected to his other Pi. Yeah.
Yeah, you went Pi to phone.
Right.
Right. But he's just into the Pi
Right, the
proxy.
deeper one.
That's
Yeah,
gonna
the
come
deeper
back
one.
out and go to the internet. I think you should be able. I don't think you have to expand.
I wasn't going to, I was just going to
You should be able to go.
plugin manager,
Yep.
so it's working now.
It
So
worked.
to get that, you have to be on the internet.
Correct.
That's why I can't get to it.
So now that Pi has internet access,
That one.
and yeah,
Did it fix your phone, John?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So now it has internet access, and that is one of the fastest way to test if your DNS is working and all that.
All right.
So that Pi is using his phone gateway and the DNS that's on the phone for internet.
That's cool. Wow. You guys are good.
All right, that's really what I had. So other conversation around this, was it helpful?
Any drawbacks to it?
Huh?
Any drawbacks?
I haven't actually tried it, so,
Fair.
so again, about a month ago or 2 months ago, Rich and I were talking about the tethering, right? And I tried the tether before, and it just was always kind of weird, and so I said, there's got to be a way to do that, and so I tried this, but I have not hooked it up to my show. I personally don't need to because I have multiple VLANs, but I haven't tried to run a show across it. But I don't know why I wouldn't.
Yeah. Should work just fine.
I mean, so to me, this is a way to avoid having to get a new modem, a new router, a new all that, if you just want to have a simple show network.
I mean, the final
Right.
test would be to launch X-Lights and try to connect the controller. to
And I
X-Lights.
did do that, so I was able to push a configuration using the proxy settings.
Right.
I was able to push configuration to the controllers and everything with no problem. Right?
So in the X lights, you have it set up as that address proxy the controller to get to it.
Put two IP addresses.
We will pull up my X lights and I shall show you.
So.
We'll have to see what that is.
That's my router at
you
home.
want to have your existing controller.
136 total connections.
It's embarrassing how many you have anymore, 6 days.
Well, yeah, like the washing machine, the dryer now, and
This,
like
that-
the heater, the
That air purifiers, there's like 4 or 5 of them.
thermostat.
I got in trouble when it was on my 3D printers.
Right, well, we've got to set it on the controller.
Oh, I cannot grab that to save my freaking life.
That's your X-Lights at your home?
Right
Yes.
at the top.
Wow, that's fast.
Why won't it let me?
If you close it to the top, it might be right at the top edge.
Oh, it was still loading, I think.
Oh, so Tim couldn't be here. He's not feeling well, but he's on the chat and he goes, "Everything's been looking and sounding good." So,
Oh, that's nice. So,
So you use a port forwarding to get into there?
so right here, the IP, I don't know if you can see it, but if the IP proxy, that's where you would put the Pi IP address. And then you'd put the regular IP address for the controller here. but that's a totally different network, so I can't make that connect.
And so when you go to upload controller config, it'll bounce through and find its way.
Yeah, I didn't realize there was a spot for proxy
Yeah.
entry.
It's the intermediary proxy to get to your show network.
Yeah, that isn't working really great. Anyway. All right. Any other questions? You got any questions on the routing and routers? I'll show you my router.
Ready for
All right.
VLANs.
All right. Well, I do appreciate you guys' time. I hope it was helpful. I learned stuff. I hope you guys learned stuff.
Excellent.
Appreciate it, Jim.
All right.
Dale, are you gonna cover VLANs at all, or
Or
just
doing
that?
that would be like.
We can go into more into VLANs.
Well, if there's other people interested in doing that particular
So-
route.
So VLAN is just a secondary network, right? So we in theory created a VLAN just now by creating the 10.25.25.0 network. The key is, how do you get the two networks to talk to each other? And that's where you create them as a VLAN and you put it in your router. Now, if you're going to run them over the same cable, they have to be trunked or tagged. And that's where the smart switches allow you to tag your VLAN, so you can have VLAN 1, VLAN 0. In my case, I have 1, 5, 25, 10. I have 4 VLANs. And so as the traffic comes out, the switch tags it with whichever VLAN it belongs to, so it can use one uplink to the next switch. It decides where that traffic needs to go, or the router, and then it breaks it back apart and routes across it. So it's really just routing two networks.
What if you're running what if the one IP address of your show router, your show PI, is really the one that's then outputting to my switch, which then is going to various components. So wouldn't I just need a VLAN to have that one IP address that I've assigned to the master?
So if you're just gonna put that, like in our case, just connecting that VLAN to, it has to be on the same network as it connects. So that, it has to have the IP address of the home network.
Okay.
And that, where the VLAN comes in is, that's what's going out on the other side. And you just have to be able to route back and forth. I mean, does that help?
Because what Dale's talking about, this device has only one Ethernet input on here. And so if you were to just plug this in, and your home network router or whatever is VLAN 1, there has to be at least one VLAN on a network for
I don't need a
communication.
physical cable to connect to it at all for another network. If I just want to separate my show.
No, you don't have to. But what we're talking about, what Dale is, that there's only one Ethernet port here. So in order to have your show network and your house network all operate off of one of these, because we all have Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi 2, Wi-Fi 5, Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 7, whatever's next. So these ubiquities can actually do that. But for some of us, like I have 4 of these in my house. I have one on each floor, one in the garage, and there are SSIDs that link back to my show network. So I have, this is actually inside of my Ubiquiti as my show network, but I also have my home networks running off of this as well. And I have property, 100 miles away, that I have my Starlink internet that I can only get on. We rent it out, so I don't want people in playing with my Starlink potentially and rebooting it or whatever. So it's on a separate VLAN, but I only have one of these. So I have to segment out the VLAN inside because it's only off of one port. So if I were to plug this in, it will by default broadcast your home network, okay, over whatever SSID is on here, but you need to provision these, they don't just boot up and start working out of the box.
So to create just a VLAN for my show, you still need, do I need an access point and a smart switch both of them, or?
So you are now confusing yourself as you're still, like, if you just want completely separate, it will work. If you want to take one of those things, never have it talk to the internet, it'll work.
Yeah.
If you want to talk to the internet, there's a WAN port on that. Plug that into your house router, whatever, on a LAN port, and you're good to go. They will still be completely separate, but you would either have to hardline into that to get an IP address from that guy, or do the proxy, like what we just described here, so that you can loop through and get through that way.
Are they gonna fight each other? Because I'm on.
No, because they're separate DHCP at that
No,
point.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you're saying that they both have Wi-Fi, and so in theory they would, but you could go in and physically set the channel. So
Right.
you set one on 1 and one on 11, and so then they're locked in and they're separated. But they're not gonna fight each other any more than your neighbors fighting you.
Correct. You
Right.
light it up, and we light up our Wi-Fi, and how many on our phones? That's what you're just adding another one to the mix of that. But if you want to connect to that, you would have to disconnect Wi-Fi from your house, Wi-Fi, connect to that Wi-Fi. But then, if you did not do any gateway or uplinking or whatever, you would not have internet access at all. You would just have that local network there. What Dale was describing about trunking is you have one of these. You have your VLAN 1, which is your house network, but then VLAN 25, which can be your Wi-Fi, because these things can handle all of that. We talked about, do you have I have a Pixel stick back here that Dale brought back. Remember we were talking about when you start setting up all these Wi-Fi controllers on your bench, right?
Right.
You do one, you configure it, You unplug it, do the next one. Then it comes to showtime. And all of these turn on. Possible lag, because those kind of Wi-Fi don't necessarily have the radios or the bandwidth or just the processing oomph to process, 1,000, these guys can do 1,000 pixels or so each. It doesn't have the bandwidth because all of that is flying over the Wi-Fi, all of that data. Okay, I'm running into some of those issues right now. And so I have these, and these can handle that traffic. Okay, we talked about multicast and unicast. We're talking network today as well. So if we can talk about that, these two.
So if we want to get into that, first off, I just pulled up. This is when you talk about traffic. It's your, are you competing with yourself? Well, this is in my house. And so you can see all the different networks and stuff. Some of them are self-induced, I can see that. But all the different networks and that are competing out there. I mean, the air is just flooded and saturated. So you just have to make sure you do your best to segment them out. I wouldn't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's places in downtown Denver, though, you can't put a Wi-Fi in.
Because it's so saturated, right?
It's saturated.
What side is that you're
But-
going to do that? I'm sorry, I can't read that.
It doesn't matter what it says. It's just that these are all
No,
different.
Well, he's under a
Do you-
unified, unified's catching all that. You wanna know where you went to pull that up?
Oh, that's on my
That's
my
on his
unified
house.
router at home.
Oh, okay.
In the spring.
It's just like that one over there.
Yep.
All right, so as Ben mentioned, we didn't cover multicast and unicast. And so if I can pull up X-Lights, when you're setting up a controller, you can set it up to either have one-on-one communications with your Pi so that it sends the traffic directly to that IP address. Or you can set it up where it just sends it to everybody, which is broadcast data, and then everybody listens and discerns what's for them and what's not. And so the deal is that broadcast would be limited to your local network, where, as you saw, when you do unicast or IP, we can route it around in that. I don't know what else you were going for, Ben.
Well, in the case of like unicast and multicast, does anybody not know what the difference is? Everybody knows the difference between unicast and multicast? Cool.
I have a problem trying to figure out DPP versus Ethernet.
That's completely separate. We can
That's
cover
an
that.
X-Lite. Or,
That's an X-Lights protocol.
yeah.
Yeah.
So an easy way to explain non-light way to explain what you might see in multicast versus unicast is if I'm getting emails and they're coming from a server, they're coming to my IP address, it's a one-on-one communication, right? It's only between you and I, John, right? But I have an app that streams music or something like that. Most of the time they multicast because you want to listen to it, you want to listen to it, you want to listen to it, you want to listen to it. Rather than having one-on-one conversations, they just send it out to everybody, and then you listen to what you want to, you listen to what you want to, you listen to what you want to. That's to me, that's kind of an easy, very simplistic difference between unicast.
Yeah.
Well, X-Lights is capable of doing that. It's capable of just broadcasting everything, and then your one controller says, "Hey, I'm Universe 1. I'm this," so I listen. And this one over here is like, "I'm Universe 55. I don't listen."
Or as you get larger, going to unicast, because to your point, the controllers have to listen to what's coming at them and decide if they need to take any of that data down, versus just having a one-on-one unicast conversation. This data is for you. It's not for Doug, it's only for you. But in a multicast, Doug also has to listen to see if he needs to pay attention to any of it.
And that's why most things default now to unicast. I mean, you have to go in and physically tell it to be multicast.
Yeah.
So you won't have to worry about it.
So could you say that's equal to getting a letter addressed to you versus a letter addressed to occupant?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Or chainmail.
Chainmail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or on a mailing list. If you join a mailing list of any of these vendors, they send one message out and it goes to everybody on their list.
Yeah, one area where we played with it a little bit would be like, we have the smart light bulbs, right? And so you can set all your smart light bulbs to be the same universe and everything else. Then your controller just broadcasts, turn the light bulbs on, and then they all turn on. Where if you're on unicast, it has to say, you turn on, you turn on, you turn on, you turn on, you turn on. And so if you're sending exactly the same data, you can use multicast to send it to a set of identical props.
Right. You can unicast the same data to two controllers as well. Like if you had two megatrees and you want them to be exactly the same,
Right.
you could unicast the same
You
ether.
could make them a group?
That is on the X-Light side. We're still talking the network data.
Doug's keeping
Right.
track of all those questions, so you'll be ready to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a Doug question.
All right. All right. Again, helpful, anything else?
Layer 3 versus layer 4?
It's not, it'd be 2 versus 3,
Let's talk about
not layer 4.
No, I do that Monday through Friday, 7 to 7.
All right, anything else? All right, once again, guys, I truly appreciate it.
Thanks, Dale.
And,
Great.
Thanks, Dale.
So,
Thank you,
Yeah.
and I apologize in advance for
no, if
what I'm
people
gonna
don't ask,
be contacting you about.
if people don't ask the questions, we don't have the answers.